pitching it in, right? Big power here. Look at that.
Oh, okay. Does drift then.
Well, that's just induced drift with the weight. Hello and welcome back to another Out of Spec Reviews video. Welcome here to beautiful northern Colorado, just outside of where I live, and welcome to the Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo. In this video, we're going to figure out, is the base Taycan Cross Turismo, this one here, it's just the 4 trim, so it goes 4, 4S, Turbo, Turbo S. Is it enough? Is it fast enough? Is it good enough handling? What are we talking about here? So we're going to see, you know, I've driven every version of Taycan now, rear wheel drive, 4, 4S, Turbo, and Turbo S, all pretty much in Cross Turismo and sedan with 1 or 2 exceptions. And so I have experience across the board. We're going to take this for a hard canyon blast and sort of evaluate, is this enough? Do you even need anything more? This is the 2021 Porsche Taycan 4 Cross Turismo. As you guys know, the Cross Turismo is the long roof version of the Taycan, and it gets this plastic cladding around, a little bit higher ride height, and it's different than the sedan, mostly from the B-pillar back. From the B-pillar forwards, it's nearly identical, and so really everything changes from here backwards to give it this wagon shape. Now, it's no secret I love fast wagons. Anything that's a wagon I'm into, especially when it's an electric Porsche wagon. That's like right up my alley. And I've been so lucky to have some amazing experiences with this car around the world. I was actually the first one to drive Porsche Taycan Turbo in the US, I think. Yep, that was a pre-production prototype that I was able to drive. This was over a year ago, or maybe just about a year ago. Then I had, of course, a few different other experiences, but just recently, a few weeks ago, I had the Taycan Turbo in Germany on the Nürburgring, on the Autobahns, ripping at max speed, and all of those videos are documented here and on our sister channel, Out of Spec Motoring. But here, Porsche have kindly lent us the base Taycan Cross Turismo 4. So this is the lowest power level. It's mechanically the same as the 4S, just with a different software tune. I'll put the power level difference right here on the screen. Boop. And in this video, I want to see, is this enough power? Is it too slow? Is it the one to buy? Which is the trim level of the Taycan Cross Turismo to buy? And I think a lot of that depends on what you're doing with it, of course. So what do you say we jump in the car? Lexi will join us, and we will head out for a hard canyon blast in the base aero wheel range spec Taycan Cross Turismo. Lexi joins us as, actually, you've done a couple canyon drives with us.
Yeah, just one.
Well, what was it?
The Nissan Frontier.
The Nissan, that was a good truck, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was fun.
That was a good truck. But here we are in the Taycan. For those of you who don't know Lexi does a lot of the back-end stuff for Out of Spec. So you guys probably know Out of Spec Reviews, Out of Spec Motoring. We have a whole bunch of other YouTube channels and a written site, Swerve Autos. That's been your project mainly, building it, growing it, getting it up to speed. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
We could have a business conversation on the way here, and now we can go straight to Taycan on the way down. Yeah. Which will be a blast. So we're gonna start with a launch, as long as we don't get the front of this car taken out by this Subaru. And this one is the slowest Porsche. We're at 45% state of charge. It still gives you full power at 45. So sport mode on, left foot hard on the brake, flooring it with the right, launch control activated. Ready?
Yeah.
Oh, pretty good jolt. Look at that thing, and it pulls hard too, even down, passed into boost mode. Now just backed out of boost mode, and look, it's still motoring. So, initial launch is awesome. And then it kind of backed down a little bit at about 60 miles an hour. I was like, you don't really need to do much more. And what I'm gonna do is just get the car set up for canyon blasts because the sun's going down, so we're just gonna get right to the point. So PSM turned off, damper and Sport Plus. I don't run PDCC cars, Porsche Dynamic Chassis Control cars, with Sport Plus damper on a back road, but the cars without, I do. Do you know what any of that means?
No.
Great, let's get going. So, Porsche Dynamic Chassis Control is a 48 volt suspension leveling system that doesn't allow the car to lean into a corner, and it actually, in effect, stiffens the car a little bit. Yeah. And I don't like to do that in the with the damper in full stiff, because then it's like full race car mode. Taycan 4 in terms of power is, without launch control, what do you think?
Slow.
Slow.
Yeah.
You would use the word slow for a Porsche.
Yeah.
Well, Porsches in general, let me just be clear, have never been about straight line acceleration.
Okay.
Certainly 911 Turbo S, monster car, really hardcore, fast car. But when you talk about Cayman, Boxster, especially the base versions, they're more focused on the handling, the sweetness of the noise, not necessarily the outright acceleration. So, the Taycan rear-wheel drive, which on paper makes less power than this car, I think feels faster than this car. I don't know why it does, but that was my impression. And we're just going to go slow here because there's a collection of houses up this way. And this car, to me, just feels... it's not exciting in a straight line.
Yeah.
It's not like Model S or Taycan Turbo S, where you get in the car, launch control, and your friends are like, oh my God, that was the craziest thing, and you say, have a good day, and kick them out. Right? And then it's the next round. This car doesn't do that. And to me, that's actually okay. I think I'm okay with that, because the Taycan does so much better, or so many other things other than straight line acceleration. And this car can do every other thing that the Turbo S can do, except the straight line acceleration. So if you think about it this way, is the straight line acceleration worth $100,000 to you?
Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, you could just buy a house somewhere.
Yeah.
Or like you could buy a race car and like a trailer and tires if you want to go fast.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the boat I'm in. Do you just deal with the less crazy acceleration, which it's not bad. Like, look, the car's still boogies.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not impressively fast. So do you deal with the non-crazy acceleration and then take all the other amazing things about the Taycan, the noise insulation, the ride quality, the suspension calibration, the charging speeds. The charging speeds, to me, are the best part about this car. And then it's a wagon and it's electric. So I think the Taycan 4 might be the one most people end up buying, because it just gets big numbers when you get up into 4S. It's like $15,000 gap. Turbo's like a $40,000 gap. Turbo S, again, 80 to 100,000. I mean, just depending on spec and everything, but like, it gets expensive. So you have to imagine this car is not fast in a straight line. It's like 5-something seconds, 0 to 60 on an electric car. Almost isn't acceptable for most people. Everyone I've put in this car is like, oh, well, it does everything else so well, so you kind of have to make excuses for it. But now let's get into the rest of the stuff that this car does really well. And the first thing I want to talk about is brake pedal calibration. So let's get through past this house, and then over here, are you ready for a full emergency brake?
Yes.
You feeling all right?
Yeah.
Because you were feeling not so great earlier. Actually, cornering right here. Look at this. Just chucking it around and braking test.
Jesus Christ.
Your face just gets pulled out.
Yeah.
And the brake pedal calibration is awesome. You really get this sense of when the car is transitioning from regen to friction, because, or I should say, you don't get this sense because it's just a progressive pedal. They did such a good job. And I would argue, actually, now after driving the carbon ceramic version, now back to back with the steel brakes, I think this has better calibration than the carbon ceramics when they're cold. It's very hard to get carbon ceramics to work well when they're cold. So that's a strong point. Then handling, right? So let's rip it around some of these corners. Taycan's huge. It's 5 meters long. This car doesn't have rear steer, but look at it just absolutely demolish this back road, right? Tight corner, chucking it in. You all right? We're not even on the limit. And you can just come into these corners so fast, like faster than most people could ever imagine what a car could do, right? And so what was your impression of how that felt? Because that wasn't even near what the car could do.
I mean, it's crazy, yeah.
Yeah, so you build up the speed. It's a momentum car. And like Model S can't do that. Rivian can't do that. No, nothing else that's electric can really do that.
Yeah.
Polestar 2 is pretty good, but then you have to deal with terrible charging, and to me, that's not cool. So then you get to the drifting thing, which I like, which is when you're in a tight corner like this, you power hard out, and this car doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
It just, you can just floor it anywhere, and it's just like, oh, come on, right? And so that to me is more important than straight line acceleration, is being able to control the rear axle of the car with my right foot. And in this car, not possible at all, really anywhere. It's so 50-50 power distribution-y that it just doesn't oversteer. And that's a quality I love so much on Taycan Turbo specifically, and Turbo S, but Turbo does it better because my impression is the front motor's tuned down a little bit in the Turbo compared to Turbo S, and the rear motor still kicks. So yeah, for rear rotation-y stuff, very cool. Rear wheel drive's great at that, and the Turbo's good at that too. So that's a letdown for sure. And let's do one last launch, and then we'll drive it on the downhill and talk more about just the car in general. Yeah?
Yeah.
So, do you remember how to launch it?
No.
Okay, yeah, left foot to the floor, right foot to the floor. It says launch control activated. You can sit here all day.
Okay,
It really doesn't care. You can just sit here at a red light like this, and then you go. And it's okay.
Yeah.
And then it goes to full boost mode at about 50 miles an hour, and that's where it really rocks.
Right.
There's second gear, and then it picks up again. The 1-2 shift in this car is pretty serious for sure.
Yeah.
So now we're just gonna rock it up the hill. We're again about 37% state of charge, still making full power. One of the benefits is of having the smaller battery pack is you can make full power pretty much all the time. The car handles so predictably, and you can just go flat to the floor absolutely everywhere. And it's quiet and it's comfortable, and like this is gonna keep up with pretty much anything out there, and we're just climbing up the hill at absolutely incredible speeds, right? And then you get on the brakes and they feel really good, and then you chuck it into the corner under throttle, and it's just so well balanced. Nothing drives like this car, and this doesn't have rear steer, this doesn't have Porsche dynamic chassis control, this doesn't have carbon ceramic brakes, and it's just so nicely tuned. But then there's also a gravel mode. So if I click this, and then I go over here to drive mode, and then I click, okay, drive mode, gravel. Now it's raising the suspension up. We'll let it raise up all the way. Now we're on dirt in a Taycan, and my impression of drifting it, yeah, you can get it sideways. There we go. But it's like really doesn't want to. But hell yeah, right? That's pretty awesome. And what gravel mode does is it stiffens the suspension and raises it, so when you're actually off-roading you don't really bottom it out so much, which is great. But look at this, just you can send it around, which is good. So we have PSM full off into this corner, big power, so you have to get it upset, let it rotate, and then power out of a corner. So that's pretty fun. So at least it does that. ABS is tuned to let the wheels lock a little bit easier as well, so you gotta love that. And so it's kind of like a dual personality car. You get this like dirt rally car, and on dirt it's properly powered, because like you can just come out of here and just power out anywhere on dirt. Feels good. Braking calibration feels good. Feel it grabbing the brakes, and it's letting the wheels lock where you want it to. Very good calibration. Like, these are the things that the Germans do so much better than anyone else. Is rallying down all this. Oh, you gotta love it. We're absolutely motoring. Coming in under braking, look at this. You can just let the car dance around. You can feel the systems working, which is awesome. Pitching it in, right? Big power here. Look at that.
Oh, okay. It does drift then.
Well, that's just induced drift with the weight. Now we'll go back to sport mode. Everything's sporty, traction control off, full power. And you just drive at full power everywhere. And the tires are going to be dirty, so we'll take it easy around some of these corners, and we'll just clean them off. Even though this car is on aero wheels, it still has really good grip, and it's on Pilot Sport 4s, of course. Look at that, brakes feel nice, turns in well. This car is a zero option performance car. What I mean, it has all luxury options, so it has the air conditioned seats. No massaging seats though, that would be nice. Very understeery though. So like, this is where I really want the power of the turbo here, like power out, and it just kind of goes out. So your average consumer in a performance setting, if they can just drive this car on the limit all day long, not even think about it, go wide open throttle as much as you want. Car's not scary, it's approachable at the limit, it's tuned so well, the steering is insanely good. I would spec mine with rear steer, of course. You can get such a move on this car too. The numbers do creep up on you because you're so isolated, so you just need to be mindful of entry speeds. But it's got enough grip and all this stuff. Also, Taycan Cross Turismo has enough room. So the thing I like about the Cross Turismo over the sedan is all of the extra room you get in the back. It's not necessarily any wider or longer, but you get so much more headroom for passengers. Hold on tight for braking on the uphill. That feels cool, doesn't it? A lot of G load, of course. How are you doing?
Woo! Yeah.
Woo! So this is what it's like to work for Out of Spec, by the way.
Wild ride.
Wild ride.
It feels really good.
Doesn't it feel like
Yeah.
super well built, engineered, like stuff like
absolutely.
you just can't, like on paper, yeah, it's slow, but it does everything else so perfectly that it's like, who cares about the straight line stuff? This is where it's like no Model S is keeping up with this car on a back road, you know what I mean?
I agree, for sure.
So that's the case to make. You go for the low-end Taycan and say, I'm giving up on 0 to 60 times because they only matter when you're showing off to friends or in chat room forums. Which is totally true, by the way. I've owned a P100D. I bought into the thing. I bought the damn car. I launched it like for the first 2 weeks, like 1,000 times. And then never again. And then I was like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna drive it in like a normal cruising mode. And like, okay. Also, this car does 265 kilowatt regen, really great blending. And I don't know why he's flashing. You see that?
Yeah.
I'm not sure for what though. So maybe there's animals.
Something.
Usually that's what that means.
Yeah.
We'll keep an eye out from animals. And so yeah, 265 kilowatt regen. Just an amazingly well-balanced car. So is the Taycan 4 enough? That's the question we're going to answer. It's been 13 minutes. If you have enough money, buy the turbo. But if you don't, if it's a stretch, if you're just practical and you don't launch your car all the time, this car in launch mode is still pretty fast. Taycan 4 is good. 4S might be the sweet spot. Yeah, just a little bit more. And there you have it. It does everything just as well as the Turbo and Turbo S. You just lose the straight line acceleration. And it's not like it's slow. I can still, you know, foot down and rock it if we want to. Oh, little chipmunk. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.